Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Hawkins, and welcome to this new edition of the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. As you know, we're in a mini season on winning pro-life tactics. And today I've asked Carol Fouse, the Executive Director of Churches for Life, to come on and share with us about her ministry and what is happening in our churches. As you all know, we talk a lot about the church in the pro-life movement, how we have to get the church involved. I am a firm believer that the Christian church would rise up and say abortion is violence, it's wrong, we would end abortion. But it hasn't happened yet. So let me introduce Carol, and then we're going to have her on, and then we can kind of grill her as to what she's up to and how they're having a success and impact over there. So Carol has been a part of the staff at Churches for Life for about 9 years. Prior to joining Churches for Life, she served in public and private schools for over 20 years, including 10 years as a middle school principal. I remember my middle school principal. I'm still afraid of him. So I hope Carol is not that scary. She has decades of experience, which I think all of this experience with administration, education, curriculum probably certainly prepared her for the role she is currently in at Churches for Life, where they have a ministry that trains and coaches life teams and develops workshop materials. So welcome, Carol. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. It's a real honor. Yes, the church. That's the question I get asked the most is where's the church?
Yeah.
When we're talking about life issues. And, scripture tells us the church is supposed to be the buttress and pillar of the truth. That should be the foundation of our beliefs and how we're functioning in our culture, and it just isn't. When I think about a church, I think about it like a target diagram. Like in the center, you have the leadership of the church. Most church leaders that I've met will say that they are personally pro-life, but often don't want to talk about hard things in churches. Some say that they don't want to divide the church. Some say that people just don't want to come to church on a Sunday morning and hear about hard stuff. And the most common thing I hear is, well, we really can't talk about that in the church because it is a political issue. And separation of church and state, you just can't talk about abortion and end of life, physician-assisted suicide, and other death parts of our culture. Just can't talk about them because they're political issues. And it is true that some of those biblical issues have been stolen away and made into political issues, but they are biblical, spiritual issues that the church needs to address. So you have the leadership of the church, and then you have a group of people in the church that are life affirming. They get it. They understand life from the lens of the gospel, biblical worldview. They get it. Those are your people that are involved with pregnancy centers, and they're on the sidewalk, and they're knocking on doors with Students for Life. And then there's another part of that life affirming group that are solid in their beliefs. They get it from a scriptural point of view, but they're silent. And so the active life affirming people are frustrated because they see the culture creeping into their church. And that next ring out on this target diagram is the congregation. And there's a lot of people in our congregations that have been negatively influenced by the beliefs of the culture. It's creeping into the church. The life-affirming people are frustrated that no one's doing anything about it. There's a lot of people in churches that believe it's okay to have an abortion. I have my favorite Pew Research study that was done a number of years ago that asked the question, should abortion be legal? And they broke it down by church denomination. And the percentage of people that said yes in all or most cases was shocking. Now, you expect the numbers to be pretty high in churches that are mainline churches, don't really hold to the gospel. But in churches like the Catholic Church, I think it was 48%, Lutheran churches, 46%, Presbyterian churches were around 50%. And that was the PCA, not the PCUSA. They were like in the 90s. Even Southern Baptists were like 30%. So even within a given church, there are people who are not looking at life issues from a biblical standpoint. They have been influenced by the culture. So what we do at Churches for Life is we help start a leadership team in the church. We call it a life team. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but it is a life team. It's a group of people that help the pastor address life issues from the lens of the gospel. They are equipping the church. Their job is to discern what God wants them to do in the context of their church, and then plan events, plan seminars, plan movie nights, put little notices in the bulletin. What we want our life teams to do is drip, 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 drip through the whole year. A lot of churches do that Sanctity of Human Life sermon.
The one and done
for the whole year. But what we want our life teams to do is help make our churches aware of life issues, educate them, provide opportunities to serve, get involved. And so we don't come in with this is our program, you have to do this. We come in and train the team how to work together as a team, how to see life issues from a biblical standpoint, and teach them how to equip their church. We help them discern what God wants them to do in the context of their church, and then we encourage them. The reason we encourage them so much is because we get a life team started. They're super excited. They've been wanting this for years. It's just like going to be awesome. And people in the church are going to be so happy and they're going to do so many things. And then they plan their first event and they get all kinds of pushback, and not from people outside of the church, from people in the church. So this one life team that we started, they probably bit off a little bit more than they should have for their first thing, but they wanted to do the Making Abortion Unthinkable seminar for their church. And they started rolling that out. It got canceled. Then they were going to do a miscarriage memorial service where women could honor the life of a baby that was born too early.
That's a good idea.
And the pastor was on board. Everybody was on board. The hash sheet flyer in the bulletin was printed out. It was laying on the secretary's desk, and someone walked into the church office and went, "Oh, that's terrible. We shouldn't do that. And it got canceled." And then I don't remember the third thing that got planned, but it didn't go either.
Someone actually opposed doing an event for women who have had a miscarriage?
Well, it was, and I don't know the person that objected, but she felt that was going to drag up pain for people. And why would you hurt people in the congregation by making them think about something that was unpleasant, which is not what a miscarriage memorial service is about. So I'm sitting at their life team meeting, and they're like discouraged. They're like, we can't do anything. And so it's like, okay, as a coach, step back and ask the question, what did you just learn about your church? I mean, you've learned some things. And we had a conversation about that. And one of the life team members said, our church doesn't want to talk about hard stuff. Okay, good insight. So
Mm-hmm.
then the next question is, what is a baby step we can take? Or in our training, we call it mashing the banana. So you would never give a baby a full banana to eat. You would peel it and mash it
That's
down,
right.
give it to them on a little tiny spoon. So how can we mash the banana? How can we give our congregation one little baby spoonful of life issues to help them become comfortable? And I think that's a big deal in churches is that
You're a
people,
much better woman. I'm just gonna say you are a much better woman than I ever could be a patient because you're talking about spoon feeding adults baby food because they're too cowardly to do something to abolish abortion. See, I don't think I'd be the best person to work at Churches for Life, but I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing. So keep going. But I'm just
so,
envisioning
just
myself
like
having
what
these
can you
conversations.
do to get people in the church comfortable about talking about life issues?
Yeah. Hmm.
And I found when you pop the cork off the bottle, when someone starts the congregation, people are hungry.
They
They
are.
want to talk about it. They want to know what to do. They're frustrated, but it takes, so at any rate, so this particular life team, one of the members worked for a company that contracted with Department of Family Services. The
Okay.
people that this company was the ones that actually went to the house to remove the child from the family in a dangerous situation. And she said, on TV, you see these commercials where a child in foster care has a little suitcase they're carrying around. She said, it's not a suitcase, it's a trash bag.
Gosh, brag.
So they started a backpack drive at the church and they put things in the backpack for the children. It's like a book, a teddy bear, toothpaste and toothbrushes. And, um, and just started talking about foster care and that was tremendously successful. And then like a year later, they did a baby shower for a pregnancy center. And then they had someone come from the pregnancy center and talk. And so in the course of just I think it was 3 years, I was invited to come to their multi Sundays adult Sunday school class where they were inviting someone to come in each Sunday and talk about life issue. It might have been post-abortion healing. It might have been mental health, like all different things, end of life. They invited me to come and talk about abortion.
Mm.
They invited someone else to come in and talk about miscarriage. And just like, it took them a while to get there, but now that church is at a place where they can talk about anything. And
Mm.
that's just really satisfying. That keeps me doing what I'm doing,
Mm.
even though I would be a little bit like you going, what? They didn't want to what? But
Mm-hmm.
it's just hard. It's
Mm.
hard. And our culture tells churches, you can't talk about that stuff.
Mm.
And the voice in the culture is just loud, and you know that.
What are some of the most effective things that groups, so the life groups that you're helping to start up and mentor, what are some of the most effective things that you think they're doing in churches across the country?
Yeah. So one thing that's really simple, but it's been very effective is a quarterly movie night.
Mm.
So they show a movie, popcorn, soda. It's cheap,
Mm.
uh, you know, but they show a life affirming movie, and then they have a discussion afterwards. And again, it's like getting people to talk about it. And I personally think the church is where we should be talking about these hard things.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just this discomfort, or maybe it's not even discomfort, maybe it's a lack of venue.
Yeah.
But you give them a venue to talk about it, and great discussions. And then the next time we've done a number of movie nights, and each time there's more and more people coming. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's been really cool. That's just a simple thing that's been really effective. A lot of our life teams adopt a day for 40 Days for Life. And what I encourage them to do is go to existing groups in the church and ask them to take an hour. So,
Yep.
like a lot of churches have community groups or small group ministries or ladies' Bible study, men's Bible study. They have all these groups. And so, this one church, we divided up, the life team divided up, and we each went to a different small group. And we asked the leader if we could just have 5 minutes to talk about, would they be willing to take an hour? And here's what they do, and here's where they park, and all that kind of stuff. Then this is where the example of popping the cork off the bottle, so we said we only wanted 5 minutes. No, we ended up talking for like an hour at every single one of these groups because somebody put the topic out there to be talked about. So there were lots of questions, and it was just it was a huge lesson for me that I think there's a lot of people that want to talk about it, but they just don't have a place. It doesn't come up.
Where do you think that, I love the movie idea, a concept. I was actually starting an email to you while you were talking because we have a brand new docu-series at Students for Life. This is Chemical Abortion that we do with Heartbeat International. We need to get that into all the churches. I think it's 5 episodes. I think every episode's like 5 minutes long. So in total, it would be a 25-minute commitment. But that's something that's, deeply troubling to me as you look at the national abortion landscape, where the abortion industry is going, the new poll that just came out, an AP poll that showed the majority of Americans don't support second or third trimester abortions.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what they're trying to do is get all the abortions in the first trimester. They want to get these pill abortions because then they don't have to pay the disposal fee. They're not saying they're actively doing an abortion. They're just simply facilitating a woman's right to choose. It's a lot easier for them to convince doctors to become abortionists because they don't literally have to do the dirty work. They just do the cleanup work. But it's something that's going to be in all of our schools, and they're moving so quickly. And so all of our churches need to be mobilizing. And a lot of times when you talk about the abortion pill, that I've talked to a lot of Christians, active pro-lifers, they'll say, "Oh, are you talking about the morning after pill?" And I'm like, "No, I am not talking about birth control. Just as the morning after pill is supposed to prevent fertilization. Is supposed to prevent the creation of a new human life. It can cause an early abortion if fertilization has occurred, but that's not the purpose of it. This is a pill that's intent on destroying and ending the life of an innocent human being." So I love to work with you on that. What do you think? It sounds like you have a lot of stories of churches and groups in churches getting started and then kind of hitting that brick wall, some sort of opposition in the churches. Because we have so many activists, both young and old, listening in, what do you think is some of your best advice you can lend to someone who's trying to start a pro-life ministry in their church or on their campus or somewhere in their community, and then is hitting a brick wall with a fellow Christian? Because I find that to be the most frustrating thing about the pro-life movement.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think the encouragement to keep on going, because when I see life teams hit that wall, they're like, well, I guess we can't do anything, but to do something in the life arena. And maybe that's a sidestep away from the abortion issue, but one that maybe will lead back to that as people become more comfortable. I think sex trafficking is something that is very accepted because everyone hates sex trafficking. So from that, you can springboard into, well, what about the girls that are being trafficked that get pregnant? What happens to them? And now you're talking about abortion. But it's coming at it from a little bit different angle. I think sometimes pro-life people can be so single focused that they're like a hammer coming at people, and they're just like, a lot of people have that image in their mind of the angry pro-lifer that's yelling on the sidewalk. But, I think that maybe sidestepping and doing something that is in the life arena that kind of builds the trust. Like,
Mm.
we're a sane group. We're trying to make people aware and educate them. We're not angry. We're not political.
Mm.
Um, we're not getting on people's cases because we think they're lazy. We just want to make people aware, and we want to have conversations. I think that's really important. The other thing is, there are people that are vehemently opposed to talking about abortion in the church. And I like to have that one-on-one conversation. It's like, so have you always believed this way? Or was there a point in your life when you
Mm.
changed? And make it all about their story and kind of help them walk through their story. So at least I have an understanding. Maybe they will have a greater understanding. And then you can gradually get into, well, are you aware what the Bible says? Generally, people in churches care about that.
Mm.
And that's the other thing, is that people just don't know. Like, I was in a evangelical church one day, and I was asked, does the Bible say anything about abortion? I'm like, what? So we have a lot of people that just don't know because we're not talking about it in our churches.
Hmm.
So we just, so starting with those awareness pieces, and yes, it's little by little and it is mashing the banana, but
Mhm.
it's getting the conversation started and not arguing with people, but seeking to understand. I think
Mm.
is a really good way to keep moving forward.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think. What do you think about and this? And a reoccurring thought I've had often in students' whole life is, when we're on campuses starting groups, I almost think I need to hire full-time folks just to go into the Bible schools,
yeah,
because there's so many pastors and children's pastors and young adult leaders, and they have no idea either about abortion, or if they do, they're too afraid to talk about because they don't, the excuse is, I don't want to harm women who are sitting here post abortive. There's the other thing that they won't say that's in the back of their mind of, I don't want to lose members who will take their donations with them when they leave. Um, what's your best advice, I guess, for starting a pro life ministry in your church or your parish, how to deal with a pastor who isn't immediately gun ho? What are the ways do you think are best to approach him, and maybe a better sales pitch?
yeah. So we started a life team in a church, and we will not start a team unless the pastor says it's okay, because we're not going to undermine the about abortion. And the reason was because he knew there were women in the church that had had abortions. He did not want to hurt them further. So, in order to build trust, we needed to honor what the pastor said. And the life team was like, well, what are we going to do? And it's like, something other than abortion. And so they worked with a closed closet ministry, and they did a diaper drive, and they got started. And the name, the life team, was in the bulletin. The life team's doing this, the life team's doing that. And then about a year into that life team, they had a pregnancy center bring the mobile unit out. And they had a young woman who had chosen life, and she had her little baby with her. And the little baby's clothes were pretty shabby. And it
Mm.
just touched the hearts of some of the people in the church. And they did like a baby shower for her later. But anyway, she came in and she told her story. And she told about how she thought about abortion, but she chose life, and it was fine. I mean, like, no one died. The word abortion was spoken, and it was all good. And so that was like the next step. And
Mm,
then I think it was the following Sanctity of Human Life Sunday. They had someone from the executive director, Michael Selming from Lutherans for Life, came and preached about abortion. And so it was just that building trust. And I think that's really important because this isn't fair, but this is real. That a lot of life ministries, a lot of pastors have had terrible experiences with pro-life groups in their church that are angry. And they don't want anything to do with that. Those people drove them crazy. And so when you ask about starting life ministry, that's what they're thinking about. Oh, I don't want one of those groups in my church. So
mm,
that's where we come in with our training and say, no, we're gospel driven. Our training is based on the Bible. We have lots of verses on how to do ministry based on scripture. And the life team is going to check with you everything they plan. They're going to let you know. So it's that building trust. So
mm.
trust within the team, trust with the leadership, and trust with the congregation that we're not going to go nuts and crazy and try to make everybody angry political people. So it's that trust building that's important, even though, you know, every life team I've started, their aim was to talk about abortion. But sometimes it was just, they had to wait a little bit to build that trust. That's super important.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's right. It is about trust, and I think you hit on something that we hit a lot upon in this podcast is about the brand of the pro-life movement. Of why do we have to build up the trust, and it's because of a challenge with our brand that there is a certain view that a lot of people hold about who they think pro-lifers are and what it is that pro-lifers do. And we shouldn't have to, have to come in and build trust and have to spoon
Right.
feed them mashed
Right.
bananas. But that is the reality of what where we're at.
Yeah.
And we have to continue to build up those relationships. So and hopefully one day we won't have to. And when we come into a church, we go anywhere in the community, we say we want to start a pro-life group. Someone says, great, how can we get started? Let's get right on this. But there is some cleanup work that has to be done with our brand in the pro-life movement, sadly. And I think what's interesting is what we have found in our research, Carol, is that the vast majority of people, even church-going Christians, simply do not know about the pregnancy resource centers and the nonviolent alternatives in their community.
Right. Yep. Yes. And I personally think that the church should be the best marketing agency ever for the pregnancy center.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that Charlotte Lozier study that was done a few years ago, and they asked people if they were aware of the concept of a pregnancy center. And if I have my numbers right, I believe it was 54% said yes, they were somewhat aware or very aware. And then they had the follow-up question, are you aware of abortion facilities? And it was 94% very aware. And so that's where we just need to build that awareness of pregnancy centers and what they do. And this is part of a workshop that I do for pregnancy center organizations. But I want the pregnancy centers to have a deep relationship with the church, not just the baby bottle coin drive, and not just showing up at the banquet, but bringing those speakers into the youth group. You know, I was in a bad situation. I was pregnant. I didn't know what to do. I was thinking about abortion. I chose life. This is why, just having speakers come into youth groups. And I was listening to someone talking about some Barna research the other day. And it's like, if we're not hitting our middle school, and I love middle school, our middle school and high school students, they are the ones that we should be focusing on our 30 somethings that,
Yep.
I mean, it'd be great if they, were on board, but we really need to focus on our youth and to make them aware of what the pregnancy center does, to help them to talk to their friends who are pregnant. Like, don't go to the abortion clinic, go to the pregnancy center. They're awesome. They do this, this, this. We need to be equipping our youth and people in our church to be knowledgeable about the services available and, just to talk about it. Like, I go to work. My coworker says, my niece is pregnant. I think she's going to get an abortion. I'm an equipped church member who then says, oh, have you heard of the pregnancy center?
Mm-hmm.
It's just that, just even word of mouth, making that awareness getting it out there. So yeah, I absolutely agree. Pregnancy centers, we need to make them well known in our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question I have for you, then I'll let you go, I promise. What about youth groups? We at Students for Life, we try so hard to get into youth groups, and we tell supporters, invite us to your church youth group, because it's amazing for us because we can talk to students that go to 4 or 5 different schools in one setting, and we've seen multiple pro-life Students for Life groups get started because of one presentation in a youth group. What would you say to folks out there who are in a youth group or who are leading a youth group? How is there anything specific or unique you think they can get involved with when it comes to defending life and serving moms and standing up for these precious babies?
Yeah. So, I mean, I love middle school and high school students because they have so much energy. And if you can tap into their passion, they're on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Also found, just being a middle school principal, that middle school students, there is no question in their mind that that's a baby. High school students, they are influenced by their circumstances.
Right.
But middle school students think, I mean, the ones that I dealt with thought abortion was horrible and that's a baby. And one of my students' mothers forced her to get an abortion, and the girls were absolutely outraged about it. And, so I think that one of the things that a life team can do in a church is go to the youth ministry leaders and say, we want to help you equip youth. Now, the problem is that parents land on a spectrum from, I want to protect my children, I don't want them to know about this, this is too much, they're not old enough, to preparing their child. And I land a lot more on preparing than protecting, because what most parents don't realize is their kids are talking about this stuff. They know it, it's around them, and they need to be prepared to give an answer. That's what the Bible tells us. You need to be giving an answer for the hope that's within you. And I think that we're missing the boat if we don't do something with the youth in our church. One life team even did something at Vacation Bible School with,
Like
starting
that?
kindergarten. It was prenatal development.
Mm-hmm.
It's like God made you in his image. And this is how a baby grows in a mommy's tummy. And they did 5 minutes a day, all 5 days of Vacation Bible School. They had a little lesson about the unborn. And I thought it was beautiful because it's not gross, it's not controversial. It's just, isn't this cool what God did? And they had the little fetal models, and, it was just really cool. But that is equipping children. And I just think we've missed the boat on that. So I really encourage our life teams to, engage the youth leaders in the church.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I encourage them to engage the youth and the church because they're the ones being pressured by the abortion industry. They're the ones dealing with, Planned Parenthood in their schools. Carol, thank you so much for all that you're doing at Churches for
You,
Life. I just, I had that idea while you were talking. I was typing up an email to you, so you'll probably be getting an email from our team soon. Because I was generating ideas and taking some notes during your talk there. So thank you so much for your doing. I hope that you've inspired folks listening, if they're not involved in a pro-life ministry in a church, to get involved. If you don't have a pro-life ministry in a church, start one. Carol,
right.
how can folks get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, they can go to our website, getintolife.org, getintolife.org. And we have lots of information on our website. And I would encourage you, we have two free downloadable ebooks. One is Life Team Basics that explains what Life Team Ministry is.
Okay.
And then Life Team Roadmap tells you how to start one in your church. We love to work with people. We do online trainings. We'll come to you if you want us to. Just reach out to us, and we're just happy to get churches to engage in the life arena.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank
I'm
you.
so grateful for you guys and everything you're doing to have you as a partner. And thank you everyone to tuning in this week on Explicitly Pro-Life. Make sure you're sharing this season with pro-lifers that that need to kind of step it up a little bit. I think this is a great way for all of us to get reinvigorated in our fight for life. There's a lot that we're facing right now, and there's a lot that we're up against. We cannot let what's happening in Washington, D.C. with the pro-abortion Biden administration, we cannot let the censorship that we're seeing, online stop or stall our momentum in any way, because we all know that every day there are lives on the line that we are called to fight for and speak for. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. Bye, Carol.
Bye. Thank you.